Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bigfoot Cooking, where today we are making biltong. Never heard of it? Oh, it's like jerky on steroids. It's like if jerky had a bigger brother who did like 30 years in prison and just came out just, yeah, that's what biltong is. Oh, it is amazing stuff. And it's simple to make. I mean, honestly, this is everything it's going to take to whip out a nice dose or weight or however you want to call it a biltong. I've got my biltong cutter, which a fan gave me. That's right, this came all the way from South Africa. We'll get more into this later. But I got my biltong cutter, which again, it's not necessary, but it's so nice. For the biltong meat, we're going to be using on this one, I'm going to use a brisket. Now, typically biltong, they use what's called a silver side. But in America, we tend to call it a bottom round or even a rump roast in some areas. It's one of the more working muscles, but you don't want to use a prime rib or anything like that. You just want to use a simple meat for this. From there, we've got salt, coriander, whole peppercorns. We're going to be using apple cider vinegar on this one. You can use what's called brown malt vinegar, something you put on your fish. Apple cider is pretty close though, so it's not going to change the flavor of it much. And a little dash of Worcestershire. Now, if you want, you can add more fluff and stuff to it. You could say you wanted it spicy. Well, of course, get you some red peppers and put on here, but we're just keeping this basic. So step one, well, let's prepare the meat and see how much, because the ratio of what we put on it really depends on how much meat we have. So let me get that ready for you. Let's start with the meat. Ah, yes, the brisket, the big, huge slab of meat. Now, in this case, like if you were smoking this as a brisket, the end down here would be tough to work with. But in this case, I'm actually going to slice this through the middle of it and try to thin it out some. So that way it's the same thickness the whole way through. And just like a normal brisket, I'm gonna trim off some of the excess fat that's on here, because when you're making biltong, you want a little bit of fat on the edge, but you don't want you're not curing fat, you're curing meat. And that's really what this is. It's curing meat so that it doesn't go bad, so that you can, keep it in your pocket and walk around with it at a concert or a movie theater or something and no one will know. That's the big trick. So let me put a little slice on this, do a little meat work, and kind of do it on the quick, because, well, talking about it and doing it's two different things. So let's just do it. All right, so now that the top's off of it, you can see the fibers on this are running this direction. Now, the thing about a brisket is this upper part, the fibers run this way, and the lower part, they run this way. So what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna separate this, because you wanna cut this along the fibers themselves. You don't wanna you don't wanna shorten them yet, because when you actually cut your biltong, that's when you do that. I know this may not make sense if you've never made biltong before, but once you get to the end of the video, this will totally be clear. So I've got it kind of where my thickness is. I'm gonna trim a little bit more of the fat off, flip it over, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to kind of show you guys the grain, because this is a beautiful picture of it. So let me go ahead and finish trimming the fat down some and get it ready for the biltong slicing. Now, the big advantage to using a silver side or bottom round is that all the fibers, like in the whole thing, are running in the same direction. Like I say, whereas these, they kind of fan down as you come across the meat. But again, if you'll separate this in half, that'll put you about where you need to be. So let's go ahead, break our brisket in half. I know the people who smoke these all the time are going, dude, you're committing a sin. That needs to be cooked in one big slab. And most of the time, I would agree with you. But we're not making brisket, we're making biltong. So I'm gonna take this piece here, and what we're gonna do, you wanna cut these into about inch thick slices. I know, nice big steaks in it, which, maybe about the width of your thumb, unless you have small hands, then maybe 2 fingers, whatever works for you. But basically, just chop this guy up into mini steaks, and that's step one of the process. One piece down. Now make sure you rotate this, because again, you want to cut with the grains on this right here. Oh, that looks so good. That is some pretty grain right there. So now, let's chop this guy up. Now that we've got it all done up like this, alley-oop. Now, I'm gonna go back through, because now that it's cut down, you can see some of these have quite a layer of fat on them. And again, you can leave this on to do this, but the fat will not dehydrate quite as fast as the meat. And so it just gets a little wonky and stuff. So I'm gonna try to trim it down more to this size than this giant size. So let me go through this again and trim these up and get them really ready for the biltong. All right, now that we got this all prepped up for the last time, I'm gonna dump it out and we're gonna weigh it. All right, got my handy dandy scale here. Let's go ahead and, let's see, we'll power this baby up. We'll tare it. Boom, now we've calibrated it to the bowl. Let's see what we got after we took all the fat off the brisket. Now, if you wanted to know what to do with the fat, I actually have a video on that. I smoked a brisket a little bit back and made tallow out of the fat. And that was kind of an adventure. For those of you who've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'll link to it at the end of this one because it's kind of interesting on its own. But it's a good way to save. You paid for the fat, you might as well use it. I mean, it is great for frying eggs, and I tell you what, it is good stuff. So let's see, all of it's in here. We have roughly 9.5 pounds. So for simple math, I'm gonna round it up to 10. For the measurements, it'll be just fine. So we got about 10 pounds of meat here. So what we're gonna use with this, because for every pound of meat, now let me give you the recipe here for this right here. For every pound of meat, you're gonna want a tablespoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of coriander, a tablespoon of whole peppercorn, we're gonna grind that up, 2.5 ounces of apple cider vinegar or your brown malt vinegar, whatever you want, and then just a dash of Worcestershire. And again, if you wanna add peppers or some heat to it, go for it. So that's kind of your theory of how to do the math to figure out how much to be in here. So like I say, 9.5, I'm just gonna round it up to 10. So let me go ahead and get all those ingredients together so that we can get the coriander a toasting. Yep, that's gonna bring out the flavor. And here you go. This is all the seasoning that you're gonna need. We've got our 10 tablespoons of salt, 10 tablespoons of pepper. The 20 teaspoons wound up being about a cup and a quarter-ish of coriander. And then we have 3 1/4 cups of apple cider. Now for my Worcestershire, well, we're just gonna put about, I don't know, what do you think that is? 2, 3 tablespoons-ish. That's about how much Worcestershire we're gonna put in there. All right, so now what we need to do is toast the coriander. What that does by putting it on a skillet, no oil, no anything else, you just put it on a dry skillet and you kind of heat it up and you get it till it starts smelling really fragrant. You don't want to burn it, but you want to get it nice and hot and have it rolling around. And as soon as it gets toasted, but not burnt, that's when you pull it off and then we're ready to grind. All this takes is just a little bit of fire, a little bit of pour, and a little bit of shaking. This, guys, is not complicated. If you made it this far, you can do this one with your eyes closed. See, my eyes were closed and you couldn't even tell. You know, there's always the question of when is toasted enough? Well, when this stuff smells good, it smells good. I mean, you could say it smells like pizza, you could say it smells like coriander, but it smells really good once you toast it up. Now from here, you could put it into a blender or if you've got a coffee grinder or something like that. But in this case, we're going old fashioned. That's right. I have ye old mortar and pestle here. And we are gonna mix this stuff up. We are gonna grind it up until, well, we don't wanna turn it into a powder. We want this to be in a coarse grind. And so, well, let me get to it. All right, and there you have some home ground spices. Oh, and I tell you what, that smells really good. I don't know, I've never actually cooked with coriander before, so I'm kind of excited to see how this works out. Now we'll dump out this, set it to the side for a moment, and it's pepper time. Now, can I do this without sneezing is the question. So away we grind. You know, I tell you what, coriander, It's a dream to do this in here. It mixes up oh so nicely. Pepper, you gotta be crazy to do that. I ain't gonna lie, this was a lot more work than I thought it was gonna be just to mix and grind down a little pepper. I'll stick with a blender or the whatever, just anything but this for pepper. Ooh, it's a little work. So now, let's take our great smelling coriander and our actually really good smelling pepper. We're gonna mix these two together. Whee, get on in there. That's right. Everybody's one big flavor party here. And we'll go ahead and add our salt in here too. And, well, get your hands dirty. Get in here and mix up all this. Get this flavor just a working for you. All right, and there is our rub. Now the big advantage that coriander does, what it really brings to the table, it's an antimicrobial. So since we have raw meat essentially, between the vinegar, which make sure it's also over 5%, you gotta have a certain amount of strength to the vinegar. So between the vinegar and the salt, that's actually what's going to cook or cure the meat. And then the coriander, it being an antimicrobial, will keep it from, as bad as I hate to say it, get a little fungus among us. We don't want that. Now I'm gonna take and scoop out a little bit because we will need this for tomorrow when I pull it out of the bag that we're about to put it in just a few minutes. That's right, it's party time. I'm gonna take all our meat and all of our seasoning. Now you could do this in buckets and lay it out and make it nice and pretty, but well, I've got this big old bowl right here, and so we're gonna do it like this. We're gonna put everybody in there. God, this thing is heavy. If you want one, I'll throw a link down there. I could see this being the perfect guacamole maker, so that way you know you're in the restaurant and they come up to the table and do it right beside you. That's pretty cool, but other than that sucker's heavy. So let's take this and we're gonna mix it in real good so the spices cover everything. And then I'm gonna get me a vacuum bag. That's right, I'll show you one of them little food savers. Perfect for this. So let me do the mixing. All right, everybody is nice and coated and packed in and flavor filled. So let me get the vacuum thing going so that way we can get the marinade in it and let it sit in the fridge overnight. Now, as I got cleaning all this up, I don't know if you can hear it in the microphone, but let me show you what's going on outside. Look at this. Chicken Little, the sky is absolutely falling. Oh, I hope I don't have to swim out of here. So I guess we're making this biltong in the rain, ain't we? Now, from here, I got my food saver set up. We are gonna pull out probably too much bag, but since you really only got one shot to do this, I'm gonna go, well, you know what? There ain't much left on the roll, so we're gonna use the whole roll. We'll just see how it goes. I'm gonna take and drop this stuff in from the top. And, oh, that's gonna be a good piece of biltong right there. Basically, we're gonna load all this up in here, and then I'm gonna pour the marinade in. So, drip, drop, flip, flop, let's fill her up. We got our biltong loaded. Now, let's pour in the juice. That's right, time for the vinegar and the little bit of Worcestershire. Let's see, just get on down in there. Oh yeah, this makes up a nice marinade. Let it run all the way down in there. All right, we'll just tuck that lip in right there. Close the door. Now we're gonna set this to moist on this one because, well, there's a lot of moisture in here. So let's see, I'm gonna give it a little rise so we can try to keep everything back, and let's see how much of the air we pull out. Good enough. Boom, we'll put the seal to it. Now, if you don't have this, that's okay. You can actually just do this in Ziploc bags. You don't have to get all fancy with this right here. The biggest thing is to keep the moisture and the marinade and everything all together and everything on here so that way it gives it all night to cure. And then tomorrow, well, we're gonna hang biltong. Now, as far as, say, beef fat for tallow, well, this thing works great for that. You suck it down, it stays in there, you throw it in the freezer, and when you get enough of it, like I said, you make tallow, just like this video right here shows you, along with the brisket, of course. So we got this. We have sealed everything up. We got everything nice and mixed in. So, well, see y'all tomorrow day when this is ready to go. Good morning. All right. We have given these guys a nice overnight soak in the fridge, and It's about noon right now, so let's go ahead and get them back out of the bag. I'm gonna lay them out on this thing, and you know how to get meat out of a bag, so I won't bore you with that. So let me turn this into this. Ta-da! Just like that, out of the bag and sprayed out nicely. Now, to do this, we're actually going to use meat hooks. That's right, we've got these little guys right here. We're gonna grab, tell you what, we'll start with this one. This one right here is incredibly long. And we're basically gonna take my hook, tell you what, I'm gonna go through the other end of it. There's less fat there. We're gonna go through this end of it and just hook it up nicely. Now, as I'm hanging these, the way you know biltong is done, you're gonna weigh it actually before and after. So let me get a number up so that way I don't approximate. Let's do this properly and mathematically. All right, so we've got our scale here. I've got it set to pounds and ounces, but honestly, I'm also gonna do this in grams because the math in grams is easier than the math in ounces. So I've got my first piece of biltong here, or pre-biltong. And let's see, this guy weighs 12.9 ounces. Let me write that down. In grams, we are at 368. Now I'm gonna keep track of this because I made a couple of labels, because we're also going to cold smoke these. That's right, a little different, but oh, that smoky flavor, who could go wrong? Now, because I'm gonna smoke it, you could take a little tag and you could write the weight on it, but I'm afraid the smoke might cover it up. So for my number one, I took a piece of parchment paper, cut a little hole in it, and cut a notch in the bottom. So that way, it goes over the hook, and as it's hanging, well, it's kind of easy to see. So we know what number one weighs. I'm only gonna do 6 of these. That way we can kind of keep track of them. So let me knock those out real quick. All right, and that takes care of the 6 that I'm gonna keep track of. I'm not gonna worry about the rest of these. I figure that's a good sample size there. And like you saw, these hooks right here, pick these guys off of Amazon, link below. These guys right here do really good at piercing the meat. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna take my upright smoker and convert it to a biltong maker. And we're gonna cold smoke these. That's right. Wait till we get this party started. So now let's move outside so I can show you guys how easy it is to swap this out. All right, we have our upright smoker, but yes, it's also the biltong maker. And to do that, we're literally just gonna swap out a few things. And as a matter of fact, we won't even be plugging it in. It's more of a storage box in this case. Our weather is, the highs right now are about 80, the lows are 60. Perfect weather for making biltong. So let's go ahead and convert this thing. A couple of real simple things we gotta do. First, let's open her up. Now, as you see, I've got one rack way up here. That's where we're gonna hang our biltong. So obviously these two guys are in the way. Time to chuck them. Now for the next step, we'll pull this guy out right here, set him down, and at the bottom is the diffuser. That way when you have the fire going, it actually spreads the heat out. No fire, no heat. So we'll take this guy off, set him off to the side, and that leaves us with a big hole in the bottom of it. You don't want this to be like open to the elements. I'm keeping it outside on the porch, and even though we're kind of rolling into fall, don't want the flies to get in here. So I'm gonna take a simple strainer and just lay it right across the hole, so that way nothing can get up in there. I'm also gonna block that little hole there, and that way that keeps things from coming from the bottom up. All right, we now have a biltong maker, so let's hang biltong. Now you'll notice the way all of this is hung, none of it is touching. You don't want the meat to make contact with each other, and you want airflow to go between it. So I think with 20 hooks in here, plenty of room, lots of access. So now let me show you the cold smoker. That's right, again, we're not plugging it in. We're not applying heat to this. If you cook it, that's a different recipe. All right, now these are the cold smoke tubes, and all you have to do, I've got this one here preloaded. Basically, I took apple wood chips for this, filled this guy up all the way to the end. This one I put the hangers on. This one is just kind of free sitting, depending on what you're trying to do. Say you were, doing something that you wanted to hang this guy on, no problem. Boom, there's your smoke generator right there. In this case, I'm just gonna set it down on the bottom and let it do its business. But all we do, we load it up with apple wood. And this thing, when I got it off of Amazon, it came with a little torch, a little brush to clean it out, and a basting brush. Not too bad of a deal. For me, I'm just gonna use a propane torch to light this guy up. And I'm gonna go ahead and set it down here, and we're gonna get it going. Now, like you see, when you first light it, you got a little bit of a flame to it, and depending on how well it's lit, depends on how high the flame comes up. But what you want to do, let it burn for just a minute or so, and then blow it out. That way you've got the smoke and not the fire. We're not building a winter fire, we're making smoke. There you go, smoke away. Now this will run, depending on the humidity, day, wood, you got an easy couple hours of this thing. So for now, well, we just shut the door and I'm gonna let it go until it's done. The big advantage over the cold smoke versus a hot smoke is none of the temp. You could actually cold smoke chocolate chips if you wanted to make some really awesome flavored chocolate chip cookies. But this is not gonna raise the temperature. It's gonna keep it at whatever, maybe a degree or two, but it's not gonna cook your meat. And that's not what we're after. We're after just adding that smoked flavor to all this biltong. So we'll check back with it in a couple of hours. And once the tube's done, then we'll set up our fan. All right, we've got about 5 hours of cold smoke going on this thing, and we're getting kind of thin. So I think we're running toward the end of it. Let's see what we got. We have burned this thing right to the end of it. So I'd say we're good. Yep, we're good. I can see right through it. So now it's time to put a fan on it. Most of your biltong makers have like a low flow fan. Well, if I got a deal for you for this one. That's right. I stole the fan out of the bedroom, but I've got it on a wooden crate, pallet, whatever you want to call it. Now I took the top off of this so I had enough room. And really, all we're gonna do is set this guy right here, and I'm gonna put it on low, and I'm gonna leave it for about 4 days. Yeah, I know, this is a time-taking thing, so let me plug it in. And so we have just a little gentle breeze coming off the top. That's it. Now we wait and stare at our biltong until it actually becomes biltong. So I'll see you guys in 3 days. Oh, look at this. I've got the biltong right out of the smoker. It's lost half its weight, and now it's good to go. Now we're going to take a good piece of this right here. I think we'll start with this one right here. Yes, this is a good piece. We'll go ahead and get the hook out of it. And from there, the biltong cutter. That's right, this guy is made out of kiat wood, or cotwood, or I don't know, K-I-A-A-T wood. And the handle is made from antelope. This is the best biltong cutter South Africa had to offer. Now from here, we're just gonna set our biltong and just slide the handle down. And would you just look at the color of this? This is perfect biltong. Now when you cut it, you're going to cut it thin. Because if you remember, when Chef was making it before, he had the fibers running long ways. But now we're cutting them the other way. It helps make it tender and delicious. Oh, I tell you what. I don't know how much of this stuff Chef's gonna have when he gets back. Matter of fact, I think I'll just keep this piece right here. Since it's not cut, I don't think he'll mind. Oh, here he comes. I gotta go. Give me that back. It's just one little piece. No, this is mine. I need it for the show. So, like somebody who was trying to steal my thunder, the biltong looks amazing. Like I said, we've lost about half its weight. It's now set. I mean, this stuff will keep. You can just about keep it shelf stable. The best way to actually store it though is go ahead and cut it up. I'm gonna put it into some Ziploc bags or some of the vacuum bags, and I'm gonna put it in the freezer, and that way, well, come hunting season, or just if I want a snack, I'll pull it out of the freezer the day before and boom, we're good to go. Now, like someone was saying, you'll take your biltong and basically set it into the slicer. About 1/4 inch is just about right, and just cut this guy down. I mean, you can go thicker, but if you go too thick, you wind up with something that's really chewy, and you get that, like after you eat it, it becomes bubble gum, and you just gnaw and gnaw and gnaw. So for now, I'm gonna take my little pieces of biltong. I'm gonna go find Benson, and I tell you what, I'll even share a piece with him. So until next time, y'all take care, and remember, Bigfoot is real and really likes biltong. This thing runs on butane, whatever you want to call it. The fireball runs on the fire. Like someone who was trying to steal my... Now, we're going to take our hairball. Let's see. Yeah, good enough.